question that you probably already answered, but I'm thinking about how are you going to convince former Lib Dem voters and people on the left to vote Green?
You said last time, didn't you?
Yeah. So
right. We could swap the order.
Oh, no,
Sorry, you go.
Well, again, with my history as an activist rather than a politician, my strategy is really just to set out my beliefs and try and convince people to vote for me. Or try to convince people of those beliefs. I don't believe in watering down what I stand for in order to attract Lib Dem voters. In order to appear to be more respectable. I am anything but respectable.
Thanks.
I think the disaffected Lib Dem voters are an important constituency. I think a lot of them were young, and a lot of them voted for Nick Clegg to do with student fees. And actually, the Green Party is the only party that offers basically student fees and can pay for it by the radical economic measures that we are proposing. So I think a lot of Lib Dem voters, unlike many Tories, do have a vision of a better and fairer world, and that's the programme that we're offering in this election, which is, as I say, an election. We're not talking about the minutiae and of local government and power at that level. We are talking about big vision stuff, and I think many Liberal Democratic voters would share a belief in a basic commitment to social justice, and certainly recognise the ecological calamity that we're facing. So I certainly think a good proportion of Lib Dems who won't vote Lib Dem again are certainly there for the taking, as are many Labour voters. And many who don't vote.
As I said earlier, I think this could be the making of getting us in this time. Lib Dem's politics in the coalition has been very, very disappointing for the voters. There's a lot of people who are quite angry, and I think we need to reach them, as you said. The question is how we reach them. I would suggest that first the PR, as I keep saying, is really important, that they really know that what we stand for, what is our message. But secondly, I would like to sit down and start a campaign where we consider maybe to attend some places, events where there's likely to be Lib Dem voters, and we can engage with them in some conversations and dialogue where they see actually what we stand for, because I think they would be surprised, I don't know, that we stand for a lot of the things they stand for. I think it is possible, I really do. I've got great hopes. We just need to reach them, and I would like to sit down and discuss how.
Yeah, I agree. It's talking to people, making sure that we get a message across effectively. People have to understand that we're there, that we're a serious political party, that we are seriously contesting this election, that we are winning the chance, and that there is a place for disaffected Lib Dems and Labour voters to go, because there's still a lot of Labour voters out there who just look at their existing party leadership, they're not convinced it's the right way to go. It's kind of like they'll be getting back to the one more heave and we can do it mentality that they've had before. There are going to be an awful lot of disappointed Lib Dems. There's people. It is still internally, it looks like two political parties, because you've got the old Liberals who seem to be quite happy to be in Parliament, and then you've got the old SDP who are clearly not happy about the way things are going at all, and will probably have preferred some kind of alliance with Labour. And I think the voters are certainly disaffected. If they know that we're there and we know that we're presenting a serious challenge, I think they will come across to us, because I think they will agree with a lot of the things that we stand for.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to get people to realise that the Green Party is the right way to go, because, I've done it. I've done it 3 times. I've persuaded the people in Lady Bay, and it's hard work to do that they need to vote Green, and they have done so overwhelmingly. And every time it's another hard job. It's not easy because the other parties have so much behind them. And I think the problem is that I've seen it because I'm a union steward, and I've seen it all. Immediately, everyone forgets that tuition fees and the academisation of schools and all this, the railways were never renationalised, even though it was Labour Party policy. That was all forgotten. And those 13 years of setting up everything ready for the coalition government that the Labour Party did, it's all been forgotten now. Oh yes, they're all great and they all agree with this, and it's just, well, a load of lies, frankly. And so we need to make sure that we show them that there is a way and that you can have confidence that it's not a wasted vote. And I think we've got to use the social media to get out to people, because the other parties have so much money that it makes it very difficult for us, and we've got to work really hard.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
If you had a wish list of policy priorities, it might not work like this because you might have given them by party, but if your own wish list about policies you'd like to work on from 1 to 5, what would they be if you got into European Parliament? What would be your top? You might be thinking time, but yeah.
No thinking time.
Yes.
Yes.
I think the first one would be 1 million green jobs, which is party policy supports 1 million green jobs. I think the second one would be a maximum wage as well as a minimum wage. I think the third one would be troops out of Afghanistan immediately. I think the fourth one would be no reverse privatisation in the NHS, and I think the fifth one would be housing for all. And I think those are the 5 policies that we highlighted in our general election campaign in IP, where I was a candidate. Climate. The number one is 1 million green jobs, because it unites the ecological issue with the economic issue. We basically want to transform the economy. We need to do that in order to save the planet.
My first would be also regarding climate change, environmental issues, and developing green jobs. Absolutely, that should be priority. Secondly, I would look at the austerity packages in Europe. I think this is outrageous. People are starving in Greece. This is going to collapse. It's going to be really catastrophic. It needs to be addressed. People with the least amount of money are punished for the mistakes of banking from bankers who just out of their own greed. So that needs to be looked at. I think the inequality of wealth is a serious issue. Then thirdly, I am an animal protector. I think what's happening with animals is terrible. I would like to fund organic animal production, local farmers, rather than having the mass keeping animals. It's just terrible how they're being tortured, and we're killing the environment at the same time with it. So I think that would be quite high up for me.
That's almost a minute.
Pardon? Sorry.
Almost a minute.
Almost a minute, yeah. So the other things, I think we need to work together and talk to the other MEPs and the members of the Alliance to really identify what the priorities should be. But environmental issues would be for me very high still on the list.
I'll put climate change as the top one, and sort of fundamentally sort of changing how our industries work across Europe. I think that would come hand in hand with the second one, which would be the austerity agenda and jobs. When the Tories were in power last time round, they were very big on the idea of expanding Europe to the east, because they wanted to have more like-thinking countries with them, so that they could have a kind of a neoliberal agenda as the dominant factor in European politics. And I think that has happened to some extent, particularly in places like Poland, for example. They seem to vote very much to the right of their MEPs do. So I think we need to sort of really challenge that austerity agenda, because it's going to produce so much social disunity and so many problems within many of the countries of the EU. The third one I would say would be energy production. There are lots of things being looked at all across the EU, right from the north of Scotland, where they're looking at wave power again, down to Spain, where they're looking at sort of a kind of a solar concentrator system where you focus lots of mirrors to superheat steam. There's a lot that can be done there, and there's so much danger of the main political parties slipping back into this kind of, we must use more coal, we must go down the nuclear route. And I think we don't need it. There are a lot of alternatives there that can and should be put into production, because even back to the 1970s when I was a kid, I can still remember people said, oh yes, we need to develop these a bit further, we need to do more research. No, let's get them into production, mass production, so that they're actually used. The next one I would want to look at really is the oceans and fishing and that kind of thing, because that's something that the EU does have a particular view on, a particular policy on. I think we're doing tremendous damage to our fisheries and to the state of the oceans in terms of pollution. And the last one would be generally transport, because it needs to be decarbonised, and the EU does have a proper role in that.
Well, for the sake of being repetitive, I'm not sure I'm very good at putting these into rank order. I have no illusions as to what the European Parliament can do. It has very little power. The Council of Europe is what actually has the power. So it's actually the individual governments of Europe that do make the decisions, really. And unfortunately, the democratically elected part, the European Parliament, has very little influence. But even so, only looking at European issues, because that's what we're campaigning on. First of all, is what we said before: the Green New Deal, the climate change jobs in insulation, because people talk so much more about energy generation instead of looking at how much energy we're actually using, which is actually what we need to concentrate on first, using less. And then the economy and the austerity measures, making sure that we're not going on to a growth-based economy, but the other ones I'm going to say was the common agricultural policy is really important. So we go to organic farming, sustainable, small is beautiful, everything, and the fisheries as well. I was going to say, the throwing back of the fish and all those is a really important issue as well. And I do come from a party that had 200 pages on fishing and nothing on education. When it started.
There is so much wrong with the world we live in that it's very difficult to find 5 things to put in order. But I would say we urgently need to do something about climate change. We urgently need to turn away from austerity politics across Europe. Other countries are getting it worse than we are. We urgently need to move out of fossil fuels into renewables. We urgently need to renationalise public transport across Europe so that it works for the common good and not for private profit. And I would say that my priority would be to tackle these issues not just in the European Parliament, but by trying to build links with grassroots direct action movements across Europe. So I would do things like go to Greece and march with Syriza. March, join in their general strikes, go to their rallies in countries like Greece and Spain, and actually put my feet on the ground and take part in direct action rather than just sitting in the European Parliament and trying to get things done.
David, sorry, partly because of the late start, I do have to go, so
okay.
I'm sorry to leave you all, but this sounds like a brilliant team of 5, and I'm hugely encouraged, and I can't resist saying there's quite a good element from Derbyshire here. Thank you.